So I've got my blank, and I'm going to convert it into a test tube, or a round bottom, as it's sometimes called. In this case, I am hooking up a blow hose to it. That's really not necessary. The end is fire polished, so I could blow directly into it. But what I found for me personally, in this kind of situation, having control with the blow hose does help. Now, this end has not been fire polished, and that's okay because the intention is to completely remove it in making the round bottom, which will be the top of the oil bubbler. Now what I've done is I've taken some 3mm glass and I've put about an inch and a half centered to make a little T here. And the idea is I'm going to get both sides hot, touch them together, and this will be my handle so I can pull off the excess glass. You don't have to do it this way. You can pull it off with tweezers, you can pull it off with just a regular punty, you could pull a point if this was long enough, but the reason I'm doing it this way, I've already practiced it once, is this gives me a good handle, and this glass is 3mm. It's very cheap. I've got a lot of it, so it's not very wasteful in the sense of if I'm using a nicer piece of glass as the punty. But the whole purpose of this is to give me a handle and allow that handle to be centered. Because if the handle isn't centered, you're going to end up with your round bottom off-center, and that's obviously a problem. So in this case, as I'm heating these two together, I do want this effectively to be a hot seal. It could be a cold seal, but I think a hot seal would be better in this situation. I'm going to tighten up this flame. Okay, so now I can just basically pull that off. There we go. Now what I need to do with my blow hose is, once I've reheated this area, so I'm heating on the shoulder, towards the top. Once this becomes melted in, I will blow it back out, again with the blow hose, to make the bottom, or actually in this case the top, of the bubbler, make it a round bottom, and make the glass in this area as uniform as possible from a thickness point of view. Again, nice and uniform. This area, the thickness of the glass should be pretty consistent, not too thin, not too thick for the next stage. This is about 5.5 inches of the 24mm glass tubing that now again has a round bottom. It's got a little bit of a bulge here, but again, that's not a problem. Now for this particular demo, instead of doing everything in colorless glass, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make the inlet for the bubbler with this orange glass, this it's borosilicate, so it's not a problem. And the reason why, if I use some colorless glass here, I would be able to see it, but it would be a little bit more difficult for you to see it on the video, and that's kind of the whole purpose of this. Now, if you notice, so this is the orange glass tubing. This is a piece, it's only been fire polished on one end. What I've done with this is I've sealed up one end, I've puntied it to 3mm glass. This is a weld. It's not a cold seal, it's a hot seal. And I've flared this that's going to go here. This flare is a little lopsided, that's going to hurt me, but that's fine. The first thing I have to do is heat up right here, pop a hole, fuse these two together, making a straight seal, or what's called a butt seal, and then I'll have the inlet for my bubbler, The next step will be to put the outlet, and I'm also going to use colored glass for that. I'm going to have all of these videos edited together rather than do it all in one go, just because of the positioning of the camera and all that goes with it. So let me get started. So the first step is to pop a hole in our test tube. And I've seen this done many different ways, of where you can blow out the test tube and then just break off the glass. Glass bubble, I should say, bubble trash. So I'm going to try and avoid that now. Okay. Now that I've opened up this hole, I have to carefully go in with my reamer to flare it just a little bit. And this is, without a doubt, something that can be incredibly frustrating when you're first doing this, and I'm speaking from my own experience, because the hole is going to have a tendency to collapse on itself. It's going to have a tendency for the glass to kind of fold over onto itself. So if you don't get a very good opening when you pop the hole, many times it's best to just pull that section of glass off and try again. So now I've got my two sections. And I'm going to hold it at a little bit of a weird angle, so for me that is, to hopefully make it easier for you, the viewer, to see this. So stick it, oops, see, that was a bad stick, and then fold over. Okay. So I stuck it, and then I gave it a little bit of a pull. Well, the good news is, even though I didn't stick the landing perfectly, it is sealed at this point. So now what I want to do, and one of the drawbacks of using this colored glass is that it's much thicker than the thin spot that I just popped out. So what I'm going to do right now is try and bring these two pieces of glass together to make it a little bit happier. And I'm going to have to put my blow hose in for a second. So what I'm doing is heating it, trying to get it aligned and so forth. Now, normally if this was just the straight seal that I was trying to work on for the project, I would go in and clean this up. But I'm not going to do this. I want to make sure that it's got a proper weld on it, that it's not going to break on me. In fact, I'll give it a little bit of a torch anneal. And I do mean a little bit, just a few seconds, and that'll be fine. And the reason why is I'm going to let this cool. I'm going to pop a hole for the outlet about here, and then I'm going to bridge these two pieces of glass together, and then with the hand torch clean up both of the seals. So right now this is very lumpy, very bumpy, but it is a good seal. I can blow into it and there's no leaks. So that's the important part, and then I can come back later with the hand torch to clean it all up. Again, the reason I don't want to mess with it right now, if you look at this, it's actually not so bad. It's pretty straight and relatively speaking uniform. If I try and heat this up to clean this up right now without a bridge, this is going to move on me. and it'll make a mistake. It'll basically make a small mistake into a catastrophe. This is where you have to be careful of knowing what your skill set is and your level of expertise. A professional glass blower could come in here, clean it up, no problem, freehand. If I try and do that, this is going to get pulled off center. So I'm going to take the time, go to the next step, bridge these two together, then use the hand torch to clean everything up. And this is why I'm filming this in sections, because I'm going to have to reposition the camera and do a few other things so you can see all the techniques that I'm using right now. I've changed the position of the camera to be a little further away, and the purpose of that is so you can see what I'm doing as far as making the bridge. Now, first, before I can make the bridge, I need to make a side seal, which will be the outlet for the bubbler. So argon or nitrogen comes in this way, bubbles through, I don't have the ring seal in, and then it exits through here. Right now, both of these tubes are closed, but I'm going to open them up eventually. And this is also puntied up with a hot seal, so that way it's easier for me to handle it. Now what I'm going to do, and it's not a bad idea here, because this is just a test piece. I'm not really that concerned of what the final product looks like. It should actually be a bubbler if I don't break it. By the way, one of the things that I'll show some close-ups of this. This particular butt seal is pretty nasty, pretty lumpy and bumpy, but I can pull on it, I can blow into it, it's sealed. And as I mentioned, I'm going to clean this up later after I make the bridge. So, okay. For making a side seal, I actually prefer doing this with the hand torch, but I'm just going to go ahead, because I don't have the setup for the hand torch right now, just going to do it with the bench burner. So I heat that up. You can see I've made a little indentation, a little bulge of where that's going to be my side seal. And I'm trying to make a small hole because it can definitely get bigger as this goes along. Okay. Okay. Besides the graphite reamer, another tool that's really useful is a Tungsten Pick. You can buy these. This is a tungsten electrode that I bought, the kind that's used for welding, and I just basically put it into a handle. And tungsten can take the intense heat. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is trying to shape this. It's not, you can see it's definitely not perfect. Now I need to size this, and you can see this thing is ginormous. In other words, this is much bigger than the hole, and that's okay, because all I need to do is just keep warming this up and flare it out a little bit more. Do as I remount this hole is to actually lift the glass up, forming a lip, because if I let the glass fold down into the tube, it becomes a mess at that point. And that's something, again, I need to work on quite a bit. Now, even though the green glass is much larger than the tube at this point, I'm not too concerned about that. And the reason why is, as I start to heat this up, it's going to contract. So I'm gonna basically bring these two together like this. Let this shrink down a little bit more. And again, I'm doing this at a little bit of an odd angle to make it so you can see what I'm doing. So I touch it, fold it over, and again, in this case, I should have shrunk the green glass a little bit more because it's overlapping, but that's okay. Okay, so I am going to make my bridge now. And this is there it is. This is 3mm. So I make a hot seal here. Okay. And actually that's a good angle. I don't have to make another bend. Give that a moment to settle. So now I take this 3mm glass tube, bring it down, and then touch them. And I'm using the tweezers to help bring this into position so that way they do make a weld, a hot seal, there we go, rather than move out of position. Another trick you can do, because this doesn't have to be spectacularly pretty, is take the two ends, mush them together, reheat, and then go from there. I'm reheating all the points of the bridge just to make sure I don't have any significant amount of stress that's going to cause it to break in a moment. So I come back here, heat this. Okay, so now, even though I still need to, because I still need to do a lot of work on my ring seal and my straight seal, this bridge adds stability. So now I can take the hand torch and come in here and clean some stuff up. Yikes. Before I repair or finish the straight seal and side seal, I wanted to show just how bad they are. Right about here, I can't physically see it, but there's a pinhole leak that's formed. The green side seal seems to be terrible looking, but it's actually complete. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reposition the piece, and then I'm going to use the hand torch to clean it up. Now I have the piece attached to a ring stand, clamped, and I have the hand torch, and I will have the blow hose in my mouth, and my plan will be to come in here and clean this up a little bit. Now first, let me get this out of there, I just want to warm this up a little bit to hopefully prevent it from cracking, which is very possible, if not probable. There's still a pinhole that I need to repair. Yeah, let's see how that goes. Okay. gosh. Okay, this went from horribly not going to work to less terrible. Okay. Should remove the bridge. Well, actually, I'm going to hold off removing the bridge. So the mistake I made, I thought my pinhole leak was here, but as it turns out, it was on my side seal, but it was really small and the air was kind of flowing along right through here. And I thought I had checked that a couple times. That's why I thought something weird had happened here, but as it turns out, my pinhole was here. So this is something that, you know, when you're doing glass blowing like this, I knew something was weird about why I couldn't find the pinhole, but I kept going at it anyway. And then once I basically made this as good as I could, I just came back here and I figured I'd find what was going on. And then sure enough, once I made this seal, once I heated that up, the pinhole went away. So right now I've left the bridge on, and I'll take that off a little bit later, but I want to keep all of this intact so I can take a closer look at it once it's cooled down. You shouldn't let it cool like this for fear of cracking. I don't care about this particular test piece. I might be able to finish it to make it a bubbler, or it might crack here. Either way's fine, honestly. But hopefully the video was clear that even though this was very non-uniform, hilariously so, by working back and forth with the hand torch and having this bridge, I was able to clean this up pretty good. And I could continue to clean it up if I really wanted to. But right now, again, I want to take a look at this area once it's cooled down. It's reasonably uniform, reasonably being a very, very, very low expectation. But we'll take a look. The piece has had a little bit of time to cool down and hasn't cracked yet. So, the mistake, several, that I made was I thought a little bubble or something had come loose here at my straight seal and that there was a pinhole, but as it turns out the pinhole was down here under that thick lump of glass. So when I blew, the air was coming up over here, and I knew it was something squirrely because I couldn't see it, but I could feel the air, but I thought for certain that I had gone over here and checked that, but it was fooling me. And this is something you have to be really careful about, that as you're working, something weird like that can happen, but you just have to power through it. And what I decided was, I could have stopped this video and edited it and cleaned it up and all this, but I'm gonna show that whole process, warts and all, because that's how you learn. That's how you get better. And ironically, I had a pinhole here, but I was still able to effectively clean up my straight seal. It's not perfect, but again, for my standard, it's fabulous. So that's reasonably uniform, and so that's fine. And my side seal, it was, again, if you look at the before and after, It was completely horrible before, and now it's just merely bad, but it's good enough. There is a little section over here, see if that's cool enough to touch, that is a little bit more non-uniform, that's a term, than the rest of it, but I can live with that. In other words, I could come back with the hand torch and try and clean some of this up. This is that kind of aftermath of that area that was really, really bad. And so what I could do is with the hand torch come back over here. This one was the back side, so I was really focusing more on the front. I could come back with the hand torch and clean that up a little bit. But for this particular test piece, I'm really not concerned about that, simply because this was about showing you how this bridging technique works. And if I didn't have the bridge in place, both of these seals would have just been a disaster. They would have caved in on themselves. I wouldn't have been able to control them the way I was. So you can see that it's still intact, where I'm going from my side seal to my butt seal, and I've got this bridge holding it in place. Before I make my ring seal, actually I'll probably be using this guy a little longer. Before I make my ring seal, I have to do two things: remove the bridge and open up this tube, not yet, I take that back. This tube can remain closed for now because I have my blow hose. That'll come later, but I definitely need to remove the bridge. And one method that I've seen is where once you heat it, you cut it with the shears. In fact, the bridge method, and I'll put a link in my description of Revere Glass, Dustin Revere. I'm using his method that I saw for bridging. Obviously, he didn't invent bridging, but that's where I saw it really done very, very well. And what I really like is how he removes the bridge. He'll heat and then cut with the shears. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And I really would have never thought about doing it this way until I saw his video. So rather than dealing with pulling it off anywhere else, first just do that. Give it a little snip. And now that, there we go, comes right off. And then cleaning this up is actually pretty easy. This is a small thing as far as, the technique to remove the bridge, but if you're inexperienced and are prone to mistakes like I am, if I come right in here and try and remove the bridge, I might put a lot of stress on these points and end up cracking the piece, which obviously would be really awkward and painful, because I've gone to so much trouble to get my butt seal and my side seal cleaned up, that to have it break because of the bridge of all things would, like I said, would be pretty terrible. So I guess my point is you should go watch his videos on glass blowing and not mine if you want to actually learn anything. So right now I've got my bridge removed, and I'm going to let it cool down, and then I'm going to set everything up for the ring seal. Okay, so now the plan is to make a ring seal. Now I'll show some photos of this, and maybe even make a separate video. I've created a little adapter. I need to modify this. I need wider tubing. What this little adapter allows me to do, I can position my ring seal where it needs to be, and I still have my blow hose all connected. Now, I've got a little bit of a Kim wipe in here and a little bit of paper towel, simply because the 14 millimeter diameter spacer that I'm using should be 20 millimeter. So I need to make a new adapter, but for now this is fine for this particular test piece. This area. Okay? Or I'm gonna warm it up, I should say, with an annealing flame. Hopefully, that will minimize the amount of stress. And I could heat that up a little bit more with that particular flame, but I think it'll be okay at this stage. So now what I'm doing is I'm focusing the flame right at that interface between the blue glass, which is on the inside, and the colorless 24mm tubing, which is on the outside. And now what I'm going to do, now that I've warmed it up a little bit, is I'm going to try and sharpen the flame to minimize heating up the side seal or the butt seal. Now, one thing I have to be careful about is because of how this is protruding, I don't want it bouncing into my marver if I can avoid it. A couple ways you can do that: by moving it further away or rotating side to side like this. What I will be doing is, once it gets up to temperature, I will be placing it against the marver to help me keep it uniform. So how did I do? Alright, I haven't taken it apart. I let it cool down. We can see side seal, ring seal, straight seal, and so far everything is intact, which is good. I'm going to remove the adapter, and the Kim wipe and paper towel will come off. Then what I need to do is I need to open this tube, put a blow hose here, or I could blow manually, but I'll probably put a blow hose. Then I'm going to seal it off here. I'm basically going to make a round bottom or a test tube. That will complete this part of the body. Then I need to come here, open this, and at that point I'm actually done. Or I can bend this tube up with a gentle curve to make it a little easier to attach the hose. But these last few steps, removing this, closing this, those are all pretty straightforward. The most important thing, of course, at this point, as you're working, is to be really careful not to do anything that could cause your ring seal to break. Again, this was a test piece. I mean, it still will be functional, but you can see, like right up here, this is not very nice, not very uniform. This part right here is a little bit thinner than I wanted it to go. I got a little carried away, but that's okay. Because as long as it is functional, that's fine. I actually looked at it on the polariscope. It has stress, but not a tremendous amount more than it did before the ring seal. My adapter for my swivel doesn't fit this 8mm tubing. I think the smallest size it fits is about 10. So I've basically just taken some hose and connected it. It's going to be a little awkward because without a swivel, it's going to kink up, but it'll be fine. And what I'm doing at this stage is I want to remove the bottom of this tubing and make this basically into a test tube, and that'll be the bottom of the bubbler. And I'll probably shoot for about half an inch to 3/4 of an inch for the bottom of the bubbler from the stem in the inside. And right now I don't even have the blow hose in my mouth. I'm not going to worry about that till I pull this off. In this case, I could use that method where I've got the glass rod and all that stuff, but I'm just going to basically pull. This is a large enough section that I'm pulling off. Then I'm just going to do it with some tweezers. See that the 24 millimeter tubing is getting to the point where it's going to start to move, and that's what I want. So there we go. And then just pull that off. Try and get that as best centered. Okay. Honestly, I could leave it exact. Oh, Jesus. Leave it exact. Oh. Whoops. Well, that's why you need a blow hose with a swivel. I probably shouldn't have found breaking that piece as funny as it was, but as I mentioned at the start, it was a test piece. It was something that, you know, I wanted to do for this demo. In fact, I've already made, before I made this video, I had actually already made several other test pieces and completed bubblers. So what you're looking at right now is a photo of each step for making the bubbler, each major step, and I saved each one of these. On the very far right, you can see two bubblers. One of them has the color glass in it, and then the other one is colorless. So obviously it would have been great if I would have saved that particular piece, but I dropped it and I'm not going to worry about it. Where I was going to finish was completing the rounding of the bottom of the bubbler, basically blowing it into a test tube. Then I was going to open the side arm, which is the green glass, then bend the orange glass, the top, to make it easier to hook up the hose. So if you look at the photo, you can see each step that gets me to the final bubbler. So obviously destroying my product at the very end, not ideal, but if you're going to be doing any glass blowing, you have to be used to working for quite some time and then having the piece crack on you or just outright dropping it like I did. This is a case where I want to blame it on that blow hose that I was using kinked up, but honestly, I looked at the video, I just let go of it. It just came right out of my hands. So that happens. Going from just the raw pieces of tubing to the final product of the bubbler is very doable, but it takes practice. And what I would recommend if you wanted to tackle a project like this, do each one of the steps multiple times till you feel comfortable with it. In other words, make a butt seal, make 10 of them. Then make a side seal, make 10 of them. Bridge up those two seals and then repair them and go from there, or clean them up. Make lots of attempts at the ring seal as well. So this is something that, in other words, if that bubbler was, super important to me, it would have been catastrophic, but it was really just part of this series, a tutorial series. The bubbler on the far right, which is just made out of colorless borosilicate glass, that's the kind that I'm going to be using in my research. The borosilicate, or the examples that have the borosilicate with the color, that's purely for this demo. They would be functional, of course, but it's a lot more trouble than it's worth to go through using colored borosilicate glass for a scientific application. So anyway, this video series of making the bubbler, hopefully that's been useful. I will probably continue making other videos that are related to this bubbler construction. but it's something that if you want to make, for example, a reflux condenser, the bubbler design is very similar to a reflux condenser. So if you've mastered these skills, butt seal, side seal, ring seal, then you're ready to move on to more complex scientific glassware like a reflux condenser. We are beginning the reverse entropy project.